Welcome to the Rebecca Panapinto Project. Today, I am very excited to host Kevin Blanchard. Kevin is a transformative technology executive with a track record of driving digital innovation and operational excellence across global retail and manufacturing enterprises. As the Global Chief Information Officer at Genesco, he leads enterprise-wide technology strategy, modernization initiatives, and digital transformation efforts that enhance customer experiences, optimize operations, and accelerate business growth. With over 2 decades of leadership experience that spans IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, enterprise applications, and cloud-based solutions, Kevin has played a pivotal role in steering companies through large-scale technology overhauls, as well as platform migrations and M&A integrations. He is known for fostering a culture of innovation, building strong and diverse technology teams, spearheading automation and AI adoption, and aligning technology with strategic business objectives. Beyond technology, Kevin is passionate about building and leveraging strong partnerships and relationships, both internally and externally. He does this to drive collaboration, innovation, as well as business success. As a thought leader within retail technology, Kevin is dedicated to bridging business and IT by leveraging data-driven insights and empowering teams to embrace agility in an ever-evolving digital landscape. We had an amazing conversation today where Kevin shared how he is able to keep his team consistently excited about innovation and pushing the envelope on what they can do in retail. Enjoy the show. Kevin, welcome to the show today.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So excited. You have such a diverse and interesting background that I was excited to talk more about that journey and then what you're doing day to day at Genesco in mainly Nashville, Tennessee, a place near and dear to my heart. But your background is super interesting in that you were a farmer's kid, you had some time in the mortgage industry, you got 2 degrees at the master's level. But you had mentioned even from your teenage years, you had this dream of ultimately getting to this CIO role. So from your perspective, even though maybe it was a little bit of a bumpy, tangential ride, how did you arrive where you are today serving Genesco?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey. Years ago when I was in my early 20s, I had zero idea how I was going to get into a CIO role, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do and something that I kind of set my sights on. Um, for me, thankfully, I had some just amazing mentors that just invested in me, believed in me, and really helped me grow into the leader that I've become, over the years. And, I think for me, it has also just created this unshakable need to pay it forward. Because there were that handful of folks that really believed and invested in me, I need to do the same thing now. So that's super important to me, but it has been a wild and crazy kind of journey to get here, as you said, between growing up on a big farm and being the child labor thing before it was frowned upon, and then mortgage banking was wild, and now this. But it's been fantastic, and feel like there's a lot more yet to come. So
Very cool. Yeah. And you've really found a career that aligns with your passions as well. And I've met some of your folks just out and about Nashville community and RF community. And one thing I'll say you've done really well at Genesco is build this amazing culture. And the people love working for you, love working on the same team, love giving back to. I'm curious as you guys go about, things are more than just culture. Obviously, you have a job to do, you have to accomplish work. So, how do you turn this culture into a culture of digital literacy? And how are you able to drive innovation across the whole organization and not just have it live in this little box of IT?
yeah, no, great question, and certainly something that I think about and obsess about quite often. And for me, it really starts with a belief that digital transformation, it isn't just an IT initiative. I think a lot of times people think of digital transformation and that kind of thing as just a set of initiatives, and it really is so much more than that. It really is a business imperative. And when I think about my role and the part that I play in that, it really is equal parts technology leader, but also business partner. I have a seat at the table when those early strategic conversations are happening, and we all know that these ongoing digital capabilities is really what unlocks the value in the overall in the overall space. One of the other things that I often like to talk about is, and one of the things I think is important in my role is to help people understand the why behind the what. And the more confident people are, in that, I think it bolsters confidence. I think it bolsters curiosity and that kind of thing. So yeah, those are some of the aspects that I think are important to that digital transformation.
Now, when you are driving a digital transformation, and a lot of times there's resistance and challenges you have to overcome, how have you navigated a lot of those and been able to overcome those barriers to get to the other side of actually realizing the benefits of that transformation?
Yeah, it's funny. Change is a fickle thing. It's both at the individual level, but it's also at the organization level. And I think human nature is to kind of gravitate towards what's familiar and what has always been or what has always worked and that kind of thing. And I don't think people just naturally want to be resistant. I think it's just we're just in our psychologically that's just kind of how folks are wired. Um, so for me, it's really just working to kind of overcome that inertia and kind of help people see that there is a better way, and we can do things differently that are more efficient and more effective, and frankly, kind of unleashes people to work on more thought provoking types of things. I think the other thing is or another challenge with it is really balancing speed with scale. There's always immense pressure to move quickly and that kind of thing. But a lot of times I like to say that, digital transformation is it's not a sprint. It really is kind of a long game or a long race or a marathon. And, so kind of pacing ourselves, really driving out quick wins to help build momentum and, those kind of things while kind of laying that foundation for sustainable, scalable growth has been super helpful and beneficial for me.
So, how would you explain the biggest lesson you learned from going through these long game digital transformation? And in that, is there words of advice or tidbits you'd share with other organizations embarking on the same type of journey?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is digital transformation to me, it's really it's not about the destination. So at the end of it, you can say, okay, we've achieved digital transformation. It really is a mindset shift and a mindset, kind of state of being. And again, it's not about projects or initiatives or completing a checklist. It really is around rallying the organization and creating an organization that's focused on continuously evolving and learning and adapting, um, you know, based on how things are digitally evolving and that kind of thing. Um, three things to me that I think are super super important. One is patience. The second is persistence, and the third would just be a strong sense of purpose. I feel like those three things, when applied in the right way and the right amounts, really kind of set one up for success. A couple things I would say to other organizations or other aspiring CIOs is just a couple things. One, you can't do it alone. You as an individual or you as a team aren't going to be successful trying to go this alone, right? You've got to partner with the business. The business has got to feel like they co-own that digital transformation with you. And when you have that, I feel like that's really where success kind of starts. Um, Probably the biggest single piece of advice I would have for, again, maybe aspiring CIOs or other companies is just to focus on why you are transforming. We all know that technology is an enabler. It's not the end game. You got to stay grounded in, again, the why, but also keeping the customer at the center of everything you're doing. And the customer absolutely should be a big part of the why in terms of why you're transforming and some of the things you're undertaking.
Yeah, sometimes with IT, especially with digital transformation, I feel like it can be a little thankless.
Yep.
Um, but the customer will always be thankful.
Oh,
And
yeah,
they
sure.
definitely speak volumes to the success or failure of these digital initiatives. Was there a time in your career you felt that you had a huge win with the customer and you were thanked in the way that they responded to the way that you transformed?
It's interesting, and obviously there's lots of different industries and stuff, and so sometimes it may feel a little bit removed in terms of the customer. I think one of the things that I love about retail is I'm only a couple of degrees removed from the consumer, and so there's just countless examples where we've delivered transformative, type capabilities and those kind of things. And you see it show back up in customer sentiment, in customer reviews or customer feedback. I would also say I look at our team members as customers as well. So, all those tens of thousands of retail team members that are out on the front lines, seeing the technology we deliver and the impact that it has on them positively, sometimes inadvertently negatively, I guess, but getting that feedback, that's super helpful. And to me, I think as a technologist kind of fuels, why we do what we do.
I want to chat more about the really cool initiatives you guys have at Genesco around paying it forward, it being such a big part of your values and what you
Sure.
guys are doing. And then even if you just, follow the brand for a little bit, you guys have done a really good job at meeting like Gen X expectations around sustainability and things
Yeah.
like that. That's a big part of what you get back to. So tell us a little bit more behind the mission of all these different programs you guys have put together to feedback and give back into your communities.
Great, great. Genesco, we're actually this year celebrating our 100th anniversary. So Genesco's been around for a long time and has seen a lot of change in its history. One of the things that I think has been core to our company and to our culture for many, many, many years is our community involvement and reinvesting. And what I would say is, our greatest impact really comes, not from writing checks. That's easy, right? A company, companies can write checks all day long to give back, but it's showing up, and it's showing up with our people, leveraging our platforms, tying into our purpose. That to me is where it's all about, and it's so much. It goes so much further than just our community, social responsibility. So really, again, kind of leveraging what makes us unique as well. You mentioned kind of our demographic, particularly with our Journeys brand, which is it skews much younger. That culture or that generation expects that of us and is watching what we do and that kind of thing. So super important. We've got a couple of initiatives in the U.S. that I'm super proud of. One is we're pretty well known for something we do called Cold Feet Warm Shoes. We have a local school near our global headquarters in Nashville that we take over every December and basically turn it into a mock shoe store. And we then fit and style, over 300 children with footwear, and it's just the most heartwarming, thing that we do every year. And people employ, our team members almost claw at the opportunity to be able to work at that particular thing. But been doing that for a number of years. I think the other thing, Genesco is hugely involved in the United Way of Greater Nashville, and have been for many years. About almost 20 years ago, we started a Make a Difference charity golf tournament during the United Way campaign, and we've raised over $6 million. Through that, with all those proceeds going directly to United Way and supporting Middle Tennesseans. But super proud. Like I said at the beginning, it's such a big part of our culture, and it's meaningful and it has impact.
Even international reach too. You guys have a branch specifically
Yeah,
in the
so we
UK,
have
right?
a division over in the UK called Schuh, SCHUH, and they're doing some wonderful things over there. One that I would call out that we launched not too long ago is something we call our single shoe campaign. And really, what that program is doing is it's kind of catering to customers with limb differences, where could be amputees or whatever the case may be. And so we allow customers to basically purchase a single shoe at a 50% discount and that kind of thing. And just it again, so heartwarming, and the feedback from our customers and the community has just been so it's been so warm and so again we kind of take this international approach to just how we show up in our communities and it's such a big part of our culture again.
Yeah, that's cool. That's something I never had even thought about. But
Yeah,
there are some people who have
lots
been
of people.
paying double for their need for footwear. That's crazy.
Absolutely.
Um, Even just you think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs of different people in different stages of
Yeah.
life. Certain people with shoes, they have unlimited budgets, and it's all about how the heel makes their height and their body look.
Right.
But the reality is, a lot of the world just needs shoes, and
Just
that's
need.
why groups like Tom's were super successful,
Yeah.
and why you're never gonna probably go out of business because everybody
Right.
needs
Right.
shoes. But you forget about these things
Yeah.
sometimes when people get caught up on the style and the new Nike and all this.
Yeah.
But the reality is there's a lot of people that are just thankful to have a pair of shoes that doesn't have a hole in them.
Right. Well, and one of the other programs over in the UK is shoes wear out, and
Mhm.
at some point shoes are no longer useful. They've reached their end of their useful life, and so then what do you do with them? Do you throw them away? Do you recycle them? And we have a great program over in the UK called Sell Your Souls, where customers can drop off and donate, shoes that are kind of unwanted or kind of end of life. And then we partner with a company called Got Sneakers that reuses and donates, all the proceeds from that to the World Land Trust to plant trees and protects wildlife habitats and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's just you just have to kind of think through. But yeah, there's so much need, and we consume so many resources that even finding a way to leverage an old worn out pair of shoes to kind of give back to the environment is it's a cool thing. So
Is there a bigger picture to sustainability beyond just making sure worn shoes are disposed of properly too? Is there a sustainability element that you've seen in the industry about just even how they create the shoes too? Is that something that's
yeah, I mean,
changing?
I think, like many industries, I think your, product development and those kind of things, you're always thinking about ways to, innovate and be more mindful of kind of how we're making our products and that kind of thing. So I think the footwear industry is no exception, to that in terms of, kind of equal parts ongoing innovation and giving customers what they want, with equal parts of just being mindful of the footprint we're leaving behind and that kind of thing. No pun intended. So.
I love it. You can pun all you want. It's fine. You can get mad at me. So I'm curious when you think about the industry as a whole, taking a step back specifically, even from shoer to just retail,
Yeah.
are there areas in retail that you see there's opportunity to make a greater impact and drive innovation to get us to this next phase of what consumerism probably is going to look like in the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah. It's there's so much change in so many industries. I think the industry that I'm in at this point is no exception. Obviously, kind of back to my earlier point about the consumer is at the center of everything we do because obviously trends change and demands change and that kind of thing. So just trying to stay true to what consumers are looking for and kind of how trends are evolving and that kind of thing. Super super important. I think such a big part of it is mindset. That's such an essential, kind of part of that. I think for me personally, just trying to continually deepen my understanding of evolving expectations, particularly of our younger consumers. Our Journeys brand here in the U.S., our shoe brand over in the U.K. Skews, much younger. Um, we all know, how quickly, youngster trends change and that kind of thing. So just, finding ways to kind of stay in touch with that super important, and not only just, what they buy, but why they're buying it. There's such a social element to especially younger retail, particularly in apparel and footwear and that kind of thing. So just, really understanding, again, why they're buying, how they're buying, what their expectations are and that kind of thing. I think that generation's kind of values around sustainability, to the earlier points, and authenticity, and then the experience that they are encountering when they are engaging with you as a retailer, all those things together, I think, really are reshaping, retail more broadly. Um, so, staying in tune with that is super important. Um, for me personally, I'm really always pushing myself to, again, better understand the consumer, but also how technology, impacts not only the employee, but also our frontline team members, in our stores, and folks behind the scenes, through our digital venues and that kind of thing. So
Well, the nice thing is, if you do it right, you can have loyal people for their whole life, even. Like I think
absolutely.
of OnCloud. I love OnCloud.
Oh yeah.
I'm always going to keep buying OnClouds, and I'm a member of the club. I get my little card. Like it's brilliant.
Yep.
Because if you do serve them right, even just like one time or in those early Gen X
Yep.
years, then you can have a customer
For
for
life.
life. If you miss it, they could be buying Amazon shoes for the rest of
Yeah,
their
I mean, I think that's a good, kind of dovetail to just loyalty programs more broadly. Loyalty programs are mission critical at this stage of the game, as retailers and brands, and that kind of thing. And finding ways to differentiate yourself, from a loyalty perspective is super helpful and important, frankly, because again, it ties back to that, making them feel special, making them feel personal, that it's a personal relationship. You know who they are, what they look, what they want, what they bought. Um, so loyalty is also a huge, kind of component to that. So, and it does help to create kind of lifetime customers.
Yeah, even though a shoe isn't as consumable as a protein bar, for example,
Yeah.
it's still a once a year, once every other year purchase that is good to count on. So
Absolutely. And
getting that right.
obviously in the, in many aspects of retail, it's all about creating those experiences that drive more frequency, right? And,
Mm.
you know, luckily shoes last a long time, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with having, many extra pairs in your closet. So
Like someone we may know.
yeah, I might be, that could, I might fit in that category. So, I won't say I'm the, full on male version of Imelda Marcos, but I do have. I live in Florida. I travel back to Nashville every week, so I kind of have two residences, so to speak. So, fully stocked closets on both ends. So,
Yeah, too bad we can't see your shoes here.
no, we'll
I'm
keep.
sure they're cool.
Well, I'm at home in Florida this week, so it could be flip
Oh,
flops. I don't
yeah, accurate. That's
know.
funny. I love it. What's your perspective on the influencer game around how it's impacting these, style decisions and shoes and even consumption? I mean, I'm sure people are buying things directly off TikTok now these days because Kim Kardashian wore it.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you see that influence going and taking folks?
I'm aging, so I'm not. I try really hard to stay current and stay involved, and so of course I have an active TikTok account myself. But what I will say is, social media has really compressed the fashion cycle. As you mentioned, like trends can explode overnight on TikTok, and be kind of yesterday's news or passe, 2, 3 weeks later. It's kind of crazy. And if in retail, we have sometimes long lead times in terms of by the time you design something, spec it out, get some samples, sell it in, buy it in, get the inventory. Like that's can be a long runway. So the fact that the fashion cycles and trend cycles can be compressed is a little jarring at times. That while that creates pressure, I think it also creates opportunity for brands to stay agile and authentic. Um, your point around influencer marketing, holy cow. Like talk about, an area that has just exploded. I chair our Genesco digital advisory panel, and we have, a number of, fantastic outside resources that participate in that. And, just recently we did a discussion around influencer marketing and influencers more broadly. And, so that is an amazing space, but it requires focus and effort. And, influencer marketing has really evolved. Not too long ago, it was just celebrity endorsements. And we couldn't be any further from that. Now it's people that blow up, and have, 100,000 followers that, go viral and, suddenly have a 500,000 or 1 million or more. Um, so a lot of that influencer marketing has really evolved to where now it's people that you may know, or, people that you look at and go, well, I think they reflect me or they reflect my community and that kind of thing. So I'm a technology guy. I'm not responsible for marketing, but I know that I've been around enough and know enough to know that it's a lot bigger and a lot broader than just, finding someone to convey your marketing message. You want to find those folks that are believable and authentic and really kind of share your values. And when you find those right people and that right content kind of comes to life, it can be rather magical, and powerful, from a company perspective. So
Well, and I'm not on TikTok, but Instagram still gets me.
come on,
And
Rebecca.
yeah, I'm a millennial. I watch everything on TikTok a week later on Instagram. Um, but I didn't think it influences me that much. And just literally within the last month, all of a sudden I've like decided to eat more cottage cheese because it's, low fat, high protein. And I just like was like, I'm in cottage cheese. Well, I needed a reload the past week. I had to go to 3 grocery stores
To
because
find
everybody's
cottage.
out.
Yeah,
And I'm like, why is that? So I
yeah,
Google, there's a cottage cheese shortage because it was a TikTok viral trend, cottage cheese. I was like, so I even decided to start eating cottage cheese again because of my
yeah,
Instagram. Didn't even realize it.
yeah,
Just thought I just wanted cottage cheese.
yeah,
And now I'm realizing, oh my God, there's a shortage. Like, oh, like,
yeah.
how did this even
But
happen?
that's how it goes. I mean, that's how it
Yeah.
works. And I mean, look, don't get me started on cottage cheese. Like, I feel like every meal that we consume at home either starts or somewhere in the middle or ends with some form of cottage cheese in it. And yeah,
Yes.
it's just it has kind of become part of who we are. And how that started, very likely started from just something on TikTok or Instagram. It's like, oh, let's try that. And now, we're going through 3 gallons of cottage cheese a week. So,
Yeah. According to my research, March 2025,
yep,
cottage cheese has made a resurgence because of social media. I was like, oh gosh,
yeah,
I literally fell for it.
it's wild.
Uh, so funny. Um, what about a lot of that being able to transfer to agility and supply chain though? Because that could really
Yeah,
struggle.
yeah, it's
Like cottage cheese shortage, you can't just not have the
yeah,
shoe everybody wants.
yeah. I mean, look, it happens, and that I think that's the tricky part about just social in general and how fast things can blow up. Um, supply chains can't necessarily, they're not that agile at times, and sometimes have difficulty, responding. I will also say though, it's a lot about continuing to drive that demand, right? Because scarcity drives demand, and the more scarce it is, the more people want it. I mean, it's just it's an odd phenomenon, but there is something about just trying to stay on top of developing trends and try to stay on top of social listening is a really big thing. Like just listening, and there's platforms and tools and partners that can help with that. But just listening socially to what's happening and the chatter that's out there can sometimes give you, some tea leaves in terms of, oh, cottage cheese is about to blow up. We should probably increase production. So
It's wild to go to
yeah,
3 grocery stores to find it. I just
yeah,
never would have expected it was that hot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But here we are.
Here we are.
Um, so you've mentioned throughout this conversation a few different times that you're so much more than just like a tech IT guy. You
Yeah.
really think about the business, you really think about culture and leadership. So I'm curious, what is your favorite thing and maybe your why behind being a leader and the leader that you've become?
Yeah, it's for me, it's all about just kind of taking all of my life experiences and what kind of culminated to kind of where I am today. But I've had a great career, and obviously still have a lot of fuel in the tank left. But at this point, it really is a lot about just having lasting impact and paying it forward, and whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm at, whoever I'm working with, just, making sure that I feel like I'm leaving whatever I'm touching in a better place than, when I found it is really kind of what drives me.
Kevin, I've so loved this conversation, and now I want to wrap it up with one final question, and it's around principles. I'm curious to hear from you. What is the guiding principle that you lived by to be successful in business?
Great, thanks. Enjoyed it as well. A couple of principles that I would call out that I really kind of live by. First is paying it forward. I've touched on that a time or two earlier in the conversation, but I really do believe wholeheartedly in that. There's again a number of folks that have invested in me over the years and helped to get me where I am today. And I feel like it's my duty to, kind of return that favor and continue to pay it forward. So, and, whether that's coaching, whether that's advocating for someone or just opening a door, is certainly something that's super important to me. Another is really something that I think is so commonsensical, but something that people at times, I don't feel like everybody does as well as they could, which is just treating people the way you want to be treated, whether that's professionally, whether that's personally. Just take a moment and kind of think about, how you're interacting, and more importantly, what kind of impression or impact are you going to leave on that individual that you're interacting with. Um, and then I think the last one I would call out is just not to take yourself too seriously. Life is too short. The work is serious at times, but you don't always have to be serious. So add a little humor, add a little humility, and that can go a long way, especially in leadership. I often also just find ways to laugh at myself, right? I think it helps keep you grounded and reminds us that we are human at the end of the day. So those are three of the top ones that I probably live my life by.
Amazing. Kevin, you're such an inspiration. I know your team loves you. Keep doing great work at Genesco, and I'm excited to catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Rebecca. Have a good one.